Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I am Jeffrey E. Berger, and welcome to the Mental Health Warriors broadcast. And thanks to Adam and Carrie to let me do my series twice a month on this amazing channel, which is Mental Fitness is the New Physical Health. And before I bring on my very special guest, Igor Klibanov, and I'm hoping I said that right this time, to the stage, if I may. As a certified holistic mental wellness coach, I'm humbled to be aligned with an amazing group of humanitarian entrepreneurs who are aligned with the only holistic mental wellness company that focuses on the microbiome. And many people say, what is that? So it really is the gut, brain, heart, access health. It is a science that's disrupting the health and wellness industry today, especially when it comes to mental wellness. Who out there hasn't experienced stress, anxiety, depression, or even has had suicidal thoughts? This interview series is near and dear to my heart, sharing stories of others, opening in conversations from all areas of wellness to help people understand it's okay to talk about mental and physical health. This is where we share experiences and become informed of alternative options that are safe and work. And what we do is we provide solutions to real people who are seriously looking to get their physical and mental health from barely surviving to thriving again. I talk about that there's really no physical health without mental wellness because they are really two sides of the same coin, and they are vital for each other to coexist and for our ability to really live and reach our peak potential in this one life that we get to live. And this is what we do best. And how you feel is not just in your head, it's also in your gut. And this holistic mental wellness company that I'm aligned with has opened up in the U.S. It opened up in 2001 in Mexico and Canada, and now in 2022, starting next month, October, we're opening up in Germany, the UK, the Netherlands, Italy, then Australia are our next markets. And if you're a passionate about holistic mental health and interested or open to getting some information about this new market launch, just reach out to me and I'd be happy to provide you some information. So with that, what we can do, and you can reach out to me on any of my social media and just let me know and we'll definitely get in touch. This company is growing in the triple digits, which means we have a platform that people are looking for. So with that, let's take a very quick break before I bring Igor up, and I'll be right back. Okay, we are back, and hopefully that on this side of the fence here, we had some internet hiccups, if you will. Hopefully that didn't happen on your side out there in social media land. So we are back, and Igor Klibanov is with us from Richmond Hill, Ontario, Canada, and he's originally from, I think it's Almaty, Kazakhstan. He's the CEO, founder, owner at Fitness Solutions Plus in Toronto, Toronto, Canada, where he is a personal trainer. He studied at the Institute of Holistic Nutrition, studied kinesiology and health science at York University. He works with clinical directors to achieve enhanced patient outcomes through targeted exercise. And he's also an author of 4 books. I'm very excited to have Igor here on my series of mental fitness is the new physical health series in collaboration with the amazing Mental Health Warriors broadcast. So welcome, Igor, to the show.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Happy to be here.
That's awesome. So before we get started with some of these questions today, why don't you share a little bit about who Igor is?
Sure. My name is Igor. I've been a personal trainer for 16 years so far, author of 8 different books on exercise and nutrition, including those 2, the Mental Health Prescription, Osteoporosis, Reversible Secrets, and others. So like I said, I'm a personal trainer who actually specializes in chronic conditions, the big 4 being type 2 diabetes, osteoporosis, osteoarthritis, and high blood pressure.
You have a lot on your plate with all those in your hands, so that's awesome. I'm excited to read these books here. I actually got them, ordered them, so I'm really excited to be diving into those in the very near future. So for our viewers today who don't know, what is osteoporosis?
Osteoporosis is simply put weak bones or a low bone density. It's when you bump into something, but you can fracture. You can fracture whatever the bone that you bumped.
And my understanding is it's more prevalent in women than it is men. And if that's true, why is that?
Yeah, it's by far more prevalent in women than men. I believe something like a 5-to-1 ratio more in women than in men. And the reason that it's more prevalent is, well, 2 reasons. One, women have a lower bone density to begin with because testosterone is greatly responsible for bone density. Men have more testosterone than women, but in women, estrogen plays a bigger role than it does in men when it comes to bone density. When women approach menopause and estrogen rapidly declines, what happens is so does bone density. Now, not all women will reach osteoporosis in their life, but a lot of women will reach at least osteopenia. And largely that's because of the decline in estrogen. But that's almost inevitable. There are things you can do about it to avoid the decline or to at least slow down the decline. And in certain cases, even actually increase the bone density. So that's one reason. One, that women get it more than men. One is just lower, like the decline in estrogen as it comes to menopause. The other reason that way more women get it than men is they just live longer. There's a greater opportunity to get osteoporosis. Men also get osteoporosis. It's just that men's osteoporosis is 15 to 20 years later than women's. Men just don't long enough to get it.
Well, hopefully that's changing because, people are living longer and which is great, but maybe new innovations through science will prove differently in the future, especially like with what's going on with stem cell therapies, so forth and so on. So thanks for providing that clarification for the viewers.
Sure.
And those of you who are watching us live, let us know where you're tuning in from. Put in questions. We will circle around and definitely answer them for you. And we'll do that after the show. So stay tuned for that. So Igor, what's the connection? And since we're the mental health warriors, what is the connection between osteoporosis and mental health?
So there's actually a very, very strong connection. Imagine this. You are a woman. You've been pretty active your whole life. You're 45, 48 years old, and you love to play golf. You like to play tennis. You like to go hiking. Then fast forward 10 years, you're now 58 to 60. And now you're postmenopausal, except now the activities that you used to do may cause a fracture if you fall. Let's say you feel healthy because osteoporosis, there's no sensation, it doesn't hurt until you fracture, but your doctor says, well, you're over 50 now, let's get you scanned. You scan and you see, oh, you have osteopenia, which is not yet osteoporosis. You ask your doctor, what does that mean? It means that your bones are weaker than they were 25 years ago or 30 years ago. And so what's the implication of that? Well, you could bump into something. And, when you were 25, if you went skiing and you fell on your butt, you just got bruised. You got back up and you kept skiing. Now that you're 58, you're 60, you might fall and you might break a hip. You break a hip, you're now in a wheelchair for a while. And once you're in a wheelchair, of course, you can't do the activities you love. You can't do more skiing. You can't play with the grandkids. You can't go. You can't play tennis. And so, because you're less active, you also have problems with cholesterol and blood sugar and triglycerides. And I mean, you might have prided yourself on being independent your whole life, and now your independence is gone because you're in a wheelchair. You have to rely on family, caregivers, friends, etc. And so, even if it hasn't happened yet, just the label of osteopenia or osteoporosis puts in a woman's mind that she should be careful, and rightfully so. And that raises a certain baseline level of anxiety.
So that is a well-painted roadmap to that transition. And wow, that's a lot that's going on for these women who are living with this condition. So with that, what are some of the biggest myths about osteoporosis?
Well, actually, my first chapter, which is called 10 and a half osteoporosis myths that are harming your health, covered 10 of them, but I'm going to give you two right now just for the sake of time.
Sure.
One myth is calcium. Calcium is good for the bones. That is not true at all. But here's where that myth originated. Calcium increases bone density. So like viewers are thinking, well, isn't that good? Don't you want higher bone density for healthy bones? Well, we really have to ask ourselves, what is the purpose of greater bone density? So the whole purpose behind that is a lower risk of fractures. Now, what happens if it raises your bone density, but it doesn't increase or it doesn't decrease your risk of fractures? Then all that really happened is you cheated the test. You look good on the test, but your likelihood of fracturing or breaking a hip or a thigh or your lower back vertebrae stays the same. So it just cheats the test. And how do we know this? There have been lots and lots and lots of very, very large studies where they divided women into different groups. Women who consume less than 400 milligrams of calcium per day, 400 to 800, 800 to 1200, and over 1200. And they saw that there was zero difference in fracture risk between under 400 and over 1200. Now, was there a difference in bone density? Yeah. Was there a difference in fracture risk? No. So the thing that really, really matters, fracture risk, did not change. That's myth number one. Myth number two is that the bone density scan is a perfect test for for fracture risk. It's a good test. It's not a perfect test. You see, bone mineral density only looks at, of course, minerals. Minerals only make up about 40% of bone. What about the other 60%? You might have a low bone density score, but everything else is looking good. So the fracture risk is higher. If you want a more holistic approach to assessing fracture risk, bone density is part of it, but it's not the entire part. There's another test called the trabecular bone score, and that gives you combine the two, and you have a more complete picture of what's going on with the bones. In addition to other stuff that you don't really have to test for, like family history, like are you eating sufficient protein, are you strength training, etc. That gives you a more complete picture of your likelihood of fracturing a bone.
Wow, that's a lot. So, while you were talking about this and about bone density, correct me if I'm wrong here. When and you said earlier about taking tests to see if you are a candidate for or approaching osteoporosis. Is that because my vision of the bone is it's a pretty solid piece of material here, but when the bone density starts to dissipate, does that mean that there are more bigger holes in the bone structure to cause it to break easier than it was when you were younger?
That's exactly it. And the way I explain it to my readers and my audiences is like this. Imagine a healthy bone. Jeff, have you ever had an Aero chocolate bar?
A who chocolate bar?
Aero, A-E-R-O?
No, I never have.
Sorry, I don't know if you guys have it in the States. It might be a Canadian thing.
Okay.
Anyways, there's an Aero chocolate bar. Maybe some viewers have and know what I'm talking about. But basically, it's got a lot of like air bubbles inside the chocolate. That's what a healthy bone looks like. Osteoporotic bone looks like Swiss cheese. So
Okay.
your like visualization of it is exactly correct. There's more air and less bone inside it. Now, one other myth, and I know I only brought up two. Here's the third one because you kind of triggered it in my head. It's that bone is rigid. Bone has rigidity to it, but bone also has flexibility to it. So bone is not just calcium. Bone is a bunch of different minerals, but also bone is collagen. Collagen is not a mineral. Because of that, yes, bone is rigid, but bone is also flexible. There's a little bit of a bend to the bone before it actually snaps. So that's another common myth, that bone is purely rigid. Bone has rigidity, but it also has flexibility.
So now I'm going to digress a little bit here from our questions. Okay. You talk about collagen, and I'm hearing more and more about this. We actually produce our own collagen. And this is done through, our own biochemical, physical, interactions of how our body works. And there are so many collagen products out there, and I'm seeing more and more reports about don't take collagen, you produce it yourself. What's your take on that?
You produce it yourself, but not enough. It's like, for example, a lot of supplements, like for example, we make our own creatine, but
Right.
yet creatine supplements are also very beneficial for things like power and cognition. So do we make it? Yes. The question is, do we make enough of it to optimize it? Do we make enough of it to survive? Maybe. But if you're only after survival, you're fine. But if you don't just want to survive, you want to thrive, it might make sense to supplement with collagen or creatine or whatever the health outcome is that you're looking for.
But do you think, and this takes me into the supplement line, or more so the food line, do you think that there is this type of depletion in our bodies today because of the processed foods are out there that are breaking down our own natural, um, our own natural abilities to create our own chemicals in us?
I don't think so. I think what's really happened, actually, this is there's a bunch more myths in chapter 1 of my book. One is
Okay.
that sugar depletes bone density. It actually doesn't. Processed foods deplete bone density. They actually don't. But here's why some of these things might look like they deplete bone density, because it's correlational. It's not causation. Now, for people who actually eat an adequate diet and sugar, their bone density is fine. People who eat an inadequate diet and sugar, their bone density is low. So sugar just happens to be at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Got
Now,
it.
don't take that to mean that sugar is a health food. It's not.
Right. Right.
But what it won't do is it won't deplete your bone density. So I think what's really happening is that we are replacing foods that could help us build bone density with foods that don't really contribute to bone density. And as I talk about in the chapter on nutrition, nutrition for osteoporosis is so ridiculously simple. Not necessarily easy to do, but simple. There is really let's say 1.5 nutritional factors that make all the difference and build bone density better than anything else. And it's not calcium and it's not vitamin D. The number one nutritional factor for bones is just boring old protein. That's it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
And again, here's how they found that out. They looked at women, all the same age, all the same hormonal status, postmenopausal, and they divided them into how much protein are they getting per day. So they divided them into women who get less than 16% of protein as their daily calories, 16 to 18%, 18 to 20%, 20 or more percent. And what they found is that amongst, I don't remember the number, but amongst 10,000 plus women, those who consumed the lowest amount of protein got about 16 fractures in the following 2 years within the study. Those who consumed between 16 and 18% still got 16 fractures. Those who consumed 18 to 20 only got 7 fractures, and those who consumed over 20% protein got 5 fractures. So they literally decreased their fracture risk by over 75% by simply consuming the right amount of protein. And again, this is not a high protein diet. This is the right amount of protein diet. 20% of your diet is not very high, and yet that's what's needed to improve bone density back to where it should be.
wow, that's interesting. Protein. That's good information. I'm gonna do some research on that myself. So, what are some of the biggest myths about osteoporosis?
Another common myth that exists is that you cannot increase your bone density. Not true at all. Here's the narrative that used to be told. From birth until about age 20, 25, bone density increased. That's for women. For men, about 25, 30. So bone density increased until that time. Then from about 25, 30 till about 40, 45, it would stabilize. And then after about 40, 45 for women, it would start to decline. For men, it's about 15, 20 years later. That's the narrative that used to be told. But what's the speed of the decline? Does it decline slowly? Does it decline faster? And that's largely controllable. Now, most women, they will decline, and that's normal. But at what point is the decline excessive to the point where it's pathological? If it's declined too much, you can absolutely improve your bone density. We've done it with dozens of clients. There's a couple of case studies right in my book, but also tons and tons of studies saying, yes, you can absolutely improve your bone density if you do the right things. And the right things are not particularly difficult. Like I said, eat adequate protein, supplement with collagen, the right type of collagen, by the way, because there's the wrong types, and exercise, specifically strength training and jumping. You do those three things, you're golden. Combine, just do one of those things, you can improve your bone density. Combine all three, you can have even better effects.
Wow, that's amazing. So people are going to have to get your book. Get this book, Osteoporosis. Reveal, what is it? The reversal secrets here. So
that's right. And if somebody wants the first chapter of the book, the PDF version for free, they can just visit osteoporosisreversal.com.
We'll put that into the chat when the interview is over. You can put that there, and they can grab that PDF.
Sure.
What do you think that people are missing when it comes to osteoporosis?
A couple of things. One, protein. By and large, women who are osteoporotic actually happen to be underweight. They just don't eat enough. Their appetite is not robust enough that they want, protein. They usually go for starches and so on. When I do a dietary recall with women who have osteoporosis, I'll often find they're eating 30 grams of protein per day or less, when they really should be eating, it's based on their body weight and everything, but somewhere between 70 and 100. So they're really, really, really deficient. That's on the nutrition side of things. On the exercise side of things, they love to go walking, they love to go dancing or hiking, etc. But one big missing piece is strength training. To strengthen your bones, you need strength training. I know it's very far-fetched to think that strength training can strengthen bones, but that's exactly what it is. And one very underrated factor is jumping. Jumping is very, very effective for improving bone density, and yet it's also a high-risk exercise. It could fracture your bones because it's jarring. So how do you get the benefits of jumping without the risks of jumping? By doing progressive, correct strength training for at least 6 to 9 months before starting to introduce jumping. And then once you introduce jumping, again, just like strength training, it has to be progressive. You jump onto something, but then step down. You don't jump up and down. And a lot of people ask, what about skipping rope? Or what about jumping on a trampoline? Those don't work, because when you're jumping rope, the goal is to jump as low as possible, not as high as possible. The jumping needed for osteoporosis is to jump as high as possible. So jumping rope doesn't accomplish that. Not to say it's bad for you. It's great for the heart, great for cardio, but it doesn't accomplish greater bone density. The other question I often get about jumping is what about jumping on a trampoline? That doesn't work either. Again, not bad for you. It just doesn't accomplish improved bone density. Why not? Because the whole goal of jumping is the impact.
Right.
What trampoline do, it takes away the impact.
Makes sense.
Not to say you shouldn't do it. If you like it for other reasons, go for it. But what it won't do is it won't improve your bone density.
Okay, awesome. Some great information again, most definitely. I'm going to combine these two questions here, because with what you're sharing today, you're obviously having some success stories with people who you're teaching on how to reverse osteoporosis. But from a nutritional perspective, what can people do to reverse osteoporosis?
Here's what I'll often tell people from a nutritional perspective. Again, the biggest factor is protein. And second would be vitamin K2. Nothing else really seems to matter. So in other words, alcohol doesn't seem to deplete bone density. Sugar doesn't do that either. Processed foods don't do it either. Again, not to say those are good foods to eat. They just don't deplete bone density. But protein is by far the biggest factor. Vitamin K2 is the second biggest factor. It's nice that a lot of foods that are high in K2 are also high in protein, but the richest source of K2 is just egg yolks. And there's a couple other things, beef and eel, and fortunately, eel and beef are also high in protein. So that works well. But yeah, protein is the single biggest factor. So if all somebody could do is do one nutritional factor, that is just eat the adequate amount of protein. So you should just have one high protein food per meal. And high protein food are by and large meat, fish, and seafood. It's what I call grade A protein, and it's things that have 30 or more grams per serving. There's a lot of stuff that I would call grade B protein, and those things tend to be between 10 and 30 grams per serving. Things like beans or eggs, Stuff like that is largely grade B protein. They don't come close anywhere to beef, chicken, tuna, salmon, stuff like that.
Awesome. Well, I do a lot of salmon, a lot of organic chicken, once in a while some beef. So, but not very much. So that's good to hear. I don't know if I could do eel. That
It's an
is.
option. It's not a necessity.
So with that, we're coming up to a wrap here, and I'm going to ask. I need to ask you one more question, but before I do that, I want to bring this in real quick here. In 2 weeks, I'm going to, which is September 15th, I'm going to be interviewing Angela Sanzali. She's a speaker, a trainer, a business coach, certified mental wellness coach. She's an entrepreneur and a Jill of all trades. So stay tuned for that. I know her personally. I'm actually going to her wedding in right before that interview. She's getting married on, I think it's the 8th of oh wait, she's getting married in October, not in September, October. But she's got a wealth of information. And so with that, the question that I want to ask you, which I always love to ask my guest, is if there was one piece of advice that you could give anyone watching who is out there really looking for that glimmer of hope, what would that be?
For people who have lost hope, I think the best way to gain hope is to look for people who are just like you, who have accomplished what you want to do. And I'll give you a little story of my grandma. She just before she passed away, she was 70 years old and could never get into the habit of strength training. She had way too many excuses. She says, I'm too old, my joints hurt, I don't know how to do it, it takes too much time, blah, 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 blah. So I could tell her about up and down about the benefits of strength training, and yet she's too far removed from me, age, sex, etc. So I have to find people like her who are not lifelong athletes, who started strength training in their 60s or 70s, and had great success at it. So I pulled up a video of other seniors who started strength training in their 60s and 70s, and their pain decreased. And it was a 4-minute video, and yet it convinced my grandmother to start strength training. I've been telling her strength training is good for 10 years versus a 4-minute video. So the best hope comes from people who are just like you, based on your sex, age, socioeconomic status, history, etc., who have achieved what you want to achieve. That gives you probably the best chance at having hope.
That's awesome. And I actually just started resistance training. So instead of lifting weights and stuff, I'm 67 years old, and I decided to venture out to this resistance training to basically keep my body healthy from a physical perspective along this mental health journey that I'm doing. So thank you for that nugget, and appreciate you coming on to the show today, taking time from your busy schedule. So with those of you who are catching us live and then on the replay, you can subscribe to the Mental Health Warriors via their Linktree link, which is in the slide here. We're streaming on with Amazon Music, Facebook Community, Instagram, Spotify, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So these are great platforms to catch us on. And so with that, again, mental fitness is the new physical health series that I'm doing on the Mental Health Warriors channel. We hope that you found value. We'll circle around if there's any questions, and Igor will respond. I will respond. And lastly, I believe we all should be living in abundance and optimum wellness physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and financially. So we will see you on the inside next time. Thanks for joining.